we would use the chat box feature of the webinar to submit your questions. After each of our speakers has given their overview, we will also open it up for verbal questions. And we'll also give another opportunity for anyone who'd like to ask questions. And again, log in, mute your line.
Logged in. Still up very high. It's all fine.
I'll go around the room and have us introduce the people that are here in our central office.
Better than what by myself. Thank you.
Me, I'm Julie Brown. I'm the director of the Local Assistance Division. And we'll go this way.
I'm Yolanda Newton in Local Assistance Division. The Asset Management Division.
Todd Hallisey with Local Assistance Division.
Mike Liver with Asset Management Division.
Tom Ringer with Structure and Bridge Division, and Adam Mateo, same division, just stepped out.
O'Neill with Structures and Bridge.
We'll go ahead and get started based on agenda. We'll have Jennifer Allen kind of give a overview of the State of the Repair program, and then we'll get into more of the details regarding information on Air Bridge. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Everyone, if you just give us 1 second, I just want to make sure that we're share. Okay. Great. So for some of you, this may be a repeat of some of the information that you've heard previously, but we thought that it would be good for us to go ahead and back through some of the statute information, as additional policy information that has been put forward before the Commonwealth Transportation Board. And this information was put before the board in the April meeting. And so this presentation that I'm going through is the presentation that was given by our chief engineer. And we're just going into some of the details that he's given to the Commonwealth Transportation Board previously in April, and it is available for access to anyone in the public. So, excuse me for 1 second. Hold on for 1 second, okay? All right, so the VDOT repair statute was actually passed back in 2015 in a 2015 General Assembly, and this was a statute that allows us to focus, when I thought that is the Commonwealth or Virginia Department of Transportation, as well as the localities, to focus on the existing assets that we have. And those existing assets are deteriorated pavements, structurally deficient bridges. The statute itself, the way it's set out is it actually defines what actions we must take on pavements and bridges. Sorry, someone just put us on hold, I think. The statute actually says that when we're paying attention to our deteriorated pavements, we must reconstruct or rehabilitate those deteriorated pavements. For structurally deficient bridges, we must construct or replace structurally deficient bridges. This for pavement that we're focusing on are interstate, primary, and primary extensions. That is all systems, or all, interstate, primary, secondary. and that's VDOT maintained and locally owned. Put to effect prioritization process. That prioritization process must consider condition and cost on pavements. In this, it's the number, condition, and cost. That also set forward that all 9 construction districts will receive funding that are based on our needs assessments, that on an annual basis. This will get less than 5.5% in a given year and no more than 17.5% in a given year. That also allowed us to have 2 waivers. And waivers are if we have a project where, say that, for example, a bridge for some reason is out of service, we are able to go to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and request that all of the state of good repair money go to that key project to bring it back into service. We did not obviously ask that to happen this year, and we do not plan on having that happen in any given year. The next waiver was that if VDOT did not meet their performance targets on the secondary pavement, could ask the Commonwealth Transportation Board to take the first 20% off of the top of the repair funds and distribute that against all 9 construction districts to bring performance targets back up on the secondary pavement. Did not request waiver. We're going to focus more of our maintenance and operations funding towards our secondary pavement so that we can again focus our state of good more towards in primary funds, in primary projects. Thing that I wanted to go through with everybody here is that statute said that we have to focus these funds on the regional rehabilitation of deteriorated pavement and reconstruction and replacement of structurally deficient bridges. It did not define what that actually meant. So we worked on a policy that any project that's going to get state of good repair funds, this for VDOT and for the localities, that it must meet 3 tests. 3 tests are, on the pavement side, that it must improve to a fair or better status or above a critical condition index of 60. The pavement side, it also meets the definition of pavement rehabilitation and reconstruction in Federal Highway Administration's memo that's dated as of September 12, 2005. In the presentation, you'll see that there's a couple links there. After we had put together this presentation, FHWA also released frequently questions on preservation of pavement. So we think it's important that we have both memos there for your use. Number 3 is that it must add or restore strength on pavement. Then on the side, bridge, it must remove it from the structurally deficient status. It must meet the definition of the bridge rehabilitation or replacement and Federal Highways Administration Bridge Guide, dated August 2011. The link has been provided in this presentation. I think Highway Administration is looking at updating that right now. So there's going to be more guidance to come on that. And then on test number 3, again, it must add or restore strength. So the examples that we've given on test number 3, which is on and restoring strength, in particular pavement side, if you take up 1.5 inches of pavement and then 1.5 inches back down, that has restored the strength of that pavement. On side, to from the structurally deficient list, or that it meets the definition of the bridge rehabilitation replacement from FHWA, or restore strength, that it doesn't mean that we're just replacing the full bridge. that if we replace the superstructure, or we replace the joints on the bridge, and that takes it off the structurally deficient list, and it's a federally eligible activity, it's met all the requirements. Again, when we went to CTB, we just wanted to go back through with them to say, okay, the statute requires that we implement a prioritization process by 1 of 2016. That went to the actual statute. The state statute said that, we must have a prioritization process in place for us to allocate these funds. And the prioritization process, it must take into account the factors of mileage, condition, and cost for payments, and number and condition and cost for bridges. For federal statute, we have an asset management plan. Well, the good thing is the comp has had an asset management plan for some time now. It's called the annual report. And we're going to publish that annually by November 30th of each year. We use that report to actually meet the requirements of the federal statute. We also have VDOT practice, which is in VDOT practice, we also take into account traffic volumes on the as well as bridge side importance to users and structural capacity. So all of that said, give me 1 second. All of that means when we put together in a picture format, what we do is we start off with the 100% of our needs. What does it take to get our asset up to 100% performance? So on the left-hand side, screen, you'll see on the bridge side, we're looking at 100% of the bridge needs, and see what we have from a locality standpoint. What needs do we have for the localities? Since we have all the non-national bridge inventory needs for localities, we have reduced our needs by non-national bridge inventory needs. Then we separated even further to say of those national bridge inventory needs that we have for VDOT and the localities, what is structurally deficient versus non-structurally deficient. So into the state of repair needs is the structurally deficient national bridge inventory needs for both VDOT and the localities. On the payment side, we then and see, okay, at 100% of the payments, what needs do we have for the locality? Since we don't have all of the urban local collector road needs, we have our needs by the secondary. Separate that even further to say of the interstate primary and primary extension needs that we have, so that is structurally is deteriorating pavements versus non-deteriorating pavements. So then what goes into the state repair needs for pavements is the interstate primary and primary extensions, deteriorated pavement needs. So what does that look like when you're getting it out by each district? So we then take the state of repair needs, we separate it out into the 9 districts as required by statute. And the district itself will have 4 buckets of funding. It'll have funding for structurally deficient bridges, the created pavements. We'll have a locality structurally deficient bridges pot of funding, and a locality deteriorated pavement amount of funding. forward for a second, just show you what it will look like, or what happened this year, and when we develop the amendment for each district. So based on these presented to the General Assembly members, 2015, when they moved the state to go repair, the distribution percentages here are set for 2017 and 2018. These will be updated. We have been instructed by the Commonwealth Transportation Board to update these percentages in 2019. But the 2019 percentages will be based off of 2018's needs. These here that are down between VDOT pavement, VDOT bridge, locality pavement, locality bridge. I'm going to stop for a second so that the fire truck can go by. So, percentages that you see that are broken down here are on the needs as reported in 2015. So, I think that those needs have actually been published or sent out to everyone for, okay, so, for everybody, so they can see that information. What I want to go ahead and state here is that we did not expect any funding in 2017. We just focused on getting the prioritization process put together by July 1 of 2016. It just happened that when the new federal authorization, the FACT Act, and we had anticipated additional state revenues, and that we were able to allocate funds to the state of repair. So we're getting money sooner rather than 2021. So just wanted to remind everybody that this whole process was supposed to be really focused on the prioritization process, and the CTB was actually going to be approving and really, getting funds in and then distributing those funds. But let me go ahead and turn over the prioritization process for bridges. I know that we've gone through the prioritization process previously for pavement, but if we go through really quickly the prioritization process for bridges, I'll back up for a second to that slide out, and then let you talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about pavements, and then just reiterate how moving forward with pavements, and then hand it over to you for bridges.
Okay, yeah, okay, and I do have it on that formula and everything like that, so
Okay.
we could just.
Skip this right now?
Yeah, honestly,
You've got
that's really the
okay, that's fine.
basis of my thing.
Let me then just go through very quickly on the prioritization process for payments, and what we try to do with the process on payments to try to keep it simple as well is that, again, we were looking at from the perspective of the localities, trying to be simple and moving the process forward because of the primary extensions process already in place. That we moved forward with using that same process, and the Commonwealth Transportation Board actually approved that process in July to be used in the future. So we were able to get projects started very quickly with the repair primary extension. And when you're looking at paved prioritization, the way we look at it is we're looking at congruent sections of pavement and not looking at tenths of a mile segments. Because, as I hear from engineers, because I'm not an engineer and I will not play one, is that that's really pothole patching. So, you're looking at really, true project type work. And our maintenance division, section of our maintenance division, has actually put together a list for some time that shows, what work or they completed primary extensions to get the critical condition index of those projects up. So that I'm going to go ahead and stop here. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to go through those, and then we'll hand it back over to Adam. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So if any questions they want to put in the chat box for Jennifer, you can now, or we can go ahead and switch over to Adam.
And I indicated that the webpage had been updated, and I did want to let you know that if you were trying to get to the webpage, that information has been posted on the primary extension, high volume unpaved road. It now says state of good repair, and I'm not sure there's a link to get to that, so that's where you'll need to go. I have looked at data that's there, and I did notice there's a couple things that are posted incorrectly. We'll try to get those corrected in the next few minutes, but the information list should all be correct, and I think Todd also sent those out people on this morning, so hopefully you each have an opportunity to look at the dish list for the Deficient bridges. And we'll turn it over to Adam.
Okay, thank you, Julie and Jennifer both. And my name is Adam Mateo, and I'm one of several assistant state bridge engineers here in the central office of VDOT. And hope to have met many of you in the past or in the future, if possible. Okay, first question is, and it will be just to let you know, a little bit of duplication with what Jennifer's spoken about, but that may not be such a bad thing after all, since it's a relatively new concept and topic for a lot of you. So the first question, why have a prioritization formula? That's what I'll be talking about is prioritization formula for bridges, for the state of good repair, and you know, how bridges are scored, how you can affect your score through this process, and what you can do about it, and what role you might be playing with state of good repair this year and in subsequent years. So first, what is prioritization formula at all? Now, there have been recent developments, statutory developments, policy developments, as well as industry trends. A lot of things going on. One, MAP 21 in the FAST Act. For the very first time, where the Federal Highway Administration has established performance measures for states, other than inspection standards, that sort of thing. These are condition performance standards. That's the law. As I explained, we have the House Bill 1887, which is now come into the state of repair law and the CTV policy. At the same time, we've changed how we collect data about bridges, and most of you should be familiar with that now. We're collecting AASHTO elements, whereas in the past we collected something called core elements. And the localities were not required to collect those. And it's all, at the same time, our management system is sunsetting. We used to have a system called Pontis, and now we have a system called BRM that's kind of filling these new elements. So a lot is changing, and in that kind of context, we have the state of repair. And what kind of all adds up to is we're all more in this together than we were in the past. In prior years, I think really has gotten to a point where, okay, the localities are over here, and VDOT's over here, and there was some play between but not a lot. But now these performance measures, we're in the world, and that's where the Federal Highway Administration is going to be holding the state of Virginia up to these standards. I don't care whether the bridge is owned by a locality or the Department of Transportation. It's all a Virginia bridge. So that's where we are now, and kind of some of the background for it. Just a little description of some of the things that are going on in MAP 21 and the FAST Act. As I mentioned before, these apply to all Virginia bridges, all dot bridges. And in the future, the Federal Highway Administration is going to be measuring construction-efficient deck area for bridges in good and in poor condition. And as I mentioned, we'll all be together as a state responsible for local and state-owned bridges. Again, as Jennifer mentioned, they're requiring an asset management plan, and that has to include elements of risk, condition, and life cycle analysis. what is the state of good repair? You've heard that term a lot. As it applies to bridges, maybe it's good to start out, as Jennifer mentioned, is for deficient bridges and pavements, but what is not is a maintenance program. This is, and I've heard the commissioner say this several times because they were involved really heavily with the development of the law, is this about getting a paint job on your bridge. This is significant work, as Jennifer mentioned, must pass the test for taking a bridge off the structure deficient list. But at the same time, don't conflate this with a bridge replacement program. Many of the bridges that will be funded through the state of good repair will wind up being replacements. So you come away from this thing thinking, oh, this meeting I said we can't replace a bridge. No, that's not true. What we're trying to do is the most appropriate set of actions for every bridge. It's really critical, and we'll talk about that a little more as we go through it. But and then, as in accordance with CTB resolution, the bridge selected prioritization formula. What is the prioritization formula that we're using? We have the general prioritization formula, and we tried to make it really address the things that we would want to address as good stewards of these assets. And kind of about when you're working on a bridge, or when you have an inventory of bridges, you have decisions to make. The first one is, what bridge do I work on? You got maybe a locality or thousands if you're a VDOT district. Which bridge, all those bridges, which ones do I work on? And then the other question is well, okay, now once I decide to work on that bridge, what do I do? I kind of get all of those pieces into a general formula, and then this is kind of showing the bones of it. It's based on these 5 variables. One for importance, one for condition, one for risk, what we were calling design redundancy, one structure capacity, and that's kind of this is vertical and horizontal clearances, and is the bridge posted? And finally, the last one is the cost effectiveness factor, which measures effectiveness of the proposed actions on that bridge. So we put all those together, and we put them into this general prioritization formula, and that's really what the basis of the scoring. So just to give you a high-level introduction to what we're doing. To give you a sense, and I'll talk a little more about each variable. I'm going to try not to kill people much with technical details, but just those first 4 variables, those are based on objective, nationally recognized measurements for condition and inventory. 11 is where you have some decisions to make. Each of the variables is based on a 0 to 1 scale and has really no dimensions or importance other than as a relative measurement. So it's kind of scale of the bridges. The first importance factor, and this was the subject of a paper by the Virginia Transportation Research Council, and what it does is it measures, it kind of ranks all of the bridges in the state based on, with the idea of saying, well, how important relatively is this little highway that the bridge occupies, how important is it to the greater highway network on a relative basis? And so in that formula, we things like traffic, proximity to schools, hospitals, emergency facilities. We also measure detour versus traffic. So if a bridge has a very long detour, but doesn't affect a lot of people, then that's one thing. But if it affects a lot of people and has a large detour, that increases the score. And we look at the class of the roadway. And also, how much is that bridge predicted to grow, or traffic on that bridge predicted to grow? And you'll recall, this is in the law. This is a requirement, is that we measure and consider condition. So that's the condition factor. And what we do for condition is we take something called the health index. And that's based in, and I mentioned earlier, the element data. And the data, many of you may be familiar with the general condition rating. And that's a high-level description of a bridge and the big pieces on a bridge. But the elements are much more detailed. So think about if you have a car, you might have, at a very high level, the engine the general condition rating descriptions, but for a bridge, you would get, for these elements, we'd get down into the brakes, the tires, and all the little pieces of the bridge. And we take that element condition state data, we put it into a formula to measure an overall health index for a bridge, and the idea is it gives us a sense of how much deterioration has that bridge experienced. And this is new for many localities. So some of you have not had the opportunity to get data. So I'm telling you, when we lag data, we have a correlation curve based on a weighted average of the general condition ratings that we're using for now and for this round, so that we don't want to end up anything, or people go out and have an inspection that they don't necessarily need to have. So just so you know where that's going. Okay. This is just kind of, again, a high-level sense of what health index does. It gives you a sense of the deterioration of the bridge space. It also allows you to understand kind of the current valuation of the equity of a structure. Because the structure is a funny thing, you know, it has value, and trying to make monetary decisions about it, but it doesn't really, nobody wants to buy it, right? It doesn't really have any revenue associated with it. So this is a kind of a proxy for measuring current valuation of our structures. So in this example, if you had $1 million replacement for a bridge, the health index of 0.32, well, we could say that bridge is worth $320,000 of current value, or, you know, kind of alternatively, that it's lost $680,000 of value due to deterioration. And the same thing graphically, and the bridge deteriorates over time. Also, the redundancy factor, you can really understand this better by calling it risk, but that's kind of a loaded term, so we went with design redundancy, and it really has to do with when the bridge was designed and built, does it have enough of redundancy in it to problems, right? So what we've done is we consider the factors of scour and critical, and scour is the susceptibility of a bridge to wash out, so which is a big problem for bridges, and when they do tend to fail, that's usually how they do fail. The other one, fracture critical, and what that means is do we have a lot of additional beams? If it's just two beam girders that are supporting the bridge, then you do a lot of redundancy or alternate load paths. We try to measure that. And the other thing called fatigue, and for a bridge has fatigue problems, and that's the susceptibility to repeated loads. We measure that. And also, is it susceptible to seismic activity? So we put it into the design redundancy factor. And the final one is the structure capacity factor. These are a final variable that's based on kind of condition and inventory data. And that's really the geometry and functionality of the bridge. Is it working? Does it have enough adequate horizontal and vertical clearance? Is the bridge getting hit a lot? And is it posted? Does it limit counters? So put it into the structure capacity factor. Now, this is the last one, the last of the 5 variables that go. I'll probably be spending most of the rest of the time talking about this. And this because this is the most important for you, because this is the one that you can affect. The other 4 really, they're based on the data. This is the basis of this is really a ratio of the requested funds that request to the replacement cost. And is, and there's the formula for it there. The RF is the request funds, and the SRC is the structure replacement cost. There's 1, minimum is 0. And the idea there is if we can do a more cost-effective repair, then we want to do more repairs, more work, than less. And I'll graphically how this is done. Okay, pardon me. I apologize, I'm going to buzz ahead. This is graphically how the cost-effectiveness factor works. So it's at 1, as long as the ratio of the requested funds to the replacement cost is 15% or less. And the reason for that is we don't want it to be a race to the bottom where people came with 5%, that sort of thing. We feel that you need about 15% at least to do most of your bridge. And then at 65% or greater, the ratio is 0. And that's a kind of an old rule that we've had, which is basically that if repair costs or rehabilitation costs is 2/3 of replacement costs, usually about time to go ahead and replace the bridge. So this graphically how this factor is done. Now, the important thing is based on the requested funds. So I have an example. Say you had a bridge project that it had a $10 million replacement cost, and you felt like the project cost needed to be $3 million. You had $1.5 million in funds from some other source, and you're requesting $1.5 million in funds from the state of good repair. Then the ratio would be based on the amount you requested, not the project cost. So that's a really important part of this thing. So in this case, you would be asking for $1.5 million, and we divide it by the $10 million replacement value, and you get a full score for this value. And that's really important as you go and you start looking at which bridges get selected. Now I'm going to back up to here. This is an example initial prioritization list for just pick the Bristol district. And what it's showing, and you'll have seen this, Todd, I think, sent it to you this morning. This shows inventory. This shows information about each of the locality-owned bridges in the Bristol that's structure deficient and eligible for good repair in the Bristol district. I have all this data. Now, there's a lot of, I apologize, you're not going to be able to see it very well. I thought it would show up better. But what it shows is, these 5 factors here are the score's importance, condition, design redundancy, structure capacity, and cost effectiveness. Now, the cost effectiveness, you may be asking, well, how do we have a cost effectiveness factor if we don't know what locality has asked? And it's a good question, because what we're basing on that in the initial run is our bridge management system, formerly Pontis, now called VRM. So we put it into a system level estimate of what's needed for that bridge, both scope and estimate, and that's used for the initial scoring. The final scoring will be based on your proposed scope and your requested funds. So this is kind of the initial prioritization list, and you'll see this for your district and for your locality. Now, what I'm showing here is that same list, everything that's gray, you can't control. Other than, now I know it's based on data that you submit, and that's objective data from inventory and National Bridge Inspection Standards. So that's not something that you're generally going to control. Those are the 4 first factors that I mentioned. The ones that you can control that do affect your score are these, and these are the yellow ones, and this is the cost effectiveness factor based on the scope and estimate. So, and even though it's only 20%, it can have a significant effect on the rankings. So I want everybody to focus on that and understand it. And I'm going back through this. So, at the due date, a form that says this is how much money we're requesting, and this is our associated scope. And you'll get today or whenever you get it the suggested scope from the bridge management system. Now, the bridge system takes high-level visual information, visually based information, and recommendations based on that. You go into your individual bridge, and you'll know it a little better than the management system. You may take chlorine, you may take strength tests, go in there and say, well, you know, that's nice that the bridge management system says this, but we have a different view of what this bridge requires. Maybe it's less and maybe it's more. And that will inform your decision on what to ask for, how much, and help you develop your estimate. The only thing is if you're going to go over the estimate listed in the management system that you're going to say, then you need to get agreement from the district bridge engineer, the VDOT district bridge engineer. You're going to change the scope. And it's basically a conversation where you say, hey, this is what we found, and this is why we want to go above. And that's an important thing, though. We encourage you to investigate your bridges now. Hey, go on out there, and if you have a lot of guidelines on how to do that, then that guidance, and that's all online. If anybody has any trouble finding it, you can contact district bridge engineers or us in central office, in the bridge division, and, Todd Hallisey will share our contact information with you later on, or I'm available. So those are kind of some important things to know as well. Now, for anybody out there who came into this thinking, well, this is a bridge replacement project or process program, then I would at least introduce you to the concept of what we're talking about and why it isn't always going to be a replacement type discussion. And this is not just localities. This is Virginia, and this is the entire nation is starting to think in this new way. Now, a quick study showing, doing a 35-year look ahead, and well, we have this aging inventory. What if we replaced every bridge as it turns age 70, or the bridges that are currently structurally deficient, replaced, not repaired and preserved, replaced as it turns 70. Now, you may have heard many people talk about a 50-year service life for bridges. In truth, probably when they were designing these things 50 years ago, they said this is a good bridge. They didn't really know when it was going to need replaced. The 50 is probably a good standard, but we found that we can press them into service for another 20 years or so. But if we wait too long, then they do need to be replaced. But this is the amount of money needed to replace them versus the amount of money that is available if we hit the watermark for our funding every year for the next 35 years. These are billions of dollars statewide need. So you can see that the money is not there for replacement. So we have to, we can't put head in the sand about it. We're aware of the problem now, looking forward. So we have to do the best thing now. We've got to start right away. And we're starting with the State of Good Repair Program. And this is showing a breakdown, that previous slide, year by year for the next 35 years. And just to note, each one of those years, you have to spend that money in that year. This is saying, oh, well, if we don't spend in 16, it accumulates in 50. No, it's saying in 50, there's so many bridges, in 2050, we have so many bridges becoming 7 years old that we're going to have to spend $1.6 billion to replace them all in that year. So our approach here in VDOT is we're shifting our culture. And it is hard to shift culture because we tend to think as engineers of designing and building a new thing. And honestly, I think politicians and many people just think that way. It's old, let's replace it, but we can't do that anymore, as the previous slide showed. We've introduced this concept of targeted repairs in conjunction with system preservation. So, kind of in more layman's terms, we go out and we fix what's wrong and recognize how it got wrong in the first place and try to prevent that from happening again. It's kind of basic logic. The typical rotted beam in a bridge, and we kind of understand, you see, that doesn't feel good to look at. That's a corroded beam end of a structurally deficient bridge. Now, the old way, we would have told ourselves probably into replacing that entire bridge because of this. But now, what we can say, let's just cut out the bad part, replace it, replace that portion of it, and we have something that's very functional now. Is it a new girder? Well, we'll know it isn't. Obviously, it's not. It'll give us decades more of life? Yes, it absolutely will. So this is kind of the general approach that we're taking to fixing. Then you coat the beam and you protect it. For steel, we can do for concrete, and this is a portion of a concrete beam that was corroded and falling. We chop out, we pour back, and we repair the problem. And then you can do for columns and pier caps. So all the corroded concrete that you see when you go into bridges, that can be fixed. Now, as I mentioned, it's not enough to just go in and fix the problem. We want to preserve. We don't want to have the same thing happen to us in another 20 years. The good news is we've developed good techniques for doing that, and we know what's causing the problem. And a lot of industries don't have that advantage. The real advantage in the sense that we know exactly what's causing our problems. It's generally corrosion caused by water and that's being carried in that water from de-icing chemicals, that sort of thing. One of the things we're doing, and we'd like to use the analogy of a roof. A bridge kind of has, it's a house with a represented by the deck. But, we kind of had this fatal flaw in our roofs that were built many years ago, which is all had holes in them, and that's at the ends of the deck in the expansion joints. So we got to get the roof fixed. So one of the things we're doing is we're doing a lot of overlays. And what it is you go to a bridge and you take the part of the concrete out, the chlorine-contaminated part, the bad part, and we use something called fast-track hydrodemolition for a lot of that. That does two really nice things. That machine shown there is a fast-track hydrodemolition. That applies very high-pressure water to the surface of the bridge deck and takes that concrete out. And you can see a very rough surface for the concrete overlay to bond to, and that's a really good thing. Another picture of that on a bridge that we did here near Richmond. And basically come out and they prepare the deck for a new concrete surface. This picture shows that you can go very shallow with it, or you can go deeper depending on the degree of deterioration and contamination. And here's a picture of a deep pipe demolition. What that does is you can see it goes deeper into the deck and takes more of the old concrete out. And hand shipping involved with that fact. In the end, we put a new overlay on it, and it is essentially for the vehicle motorist a deck. And what's nice is the new overlay, the new concrete surface, is impermeable. And the old problem with our older concrete is that it's really spongy. And so when the water gets on it, it's carrying the salt, the water goes into the concrete with the salt, and that salt causes corrosion. It's a real problem. But our new concrete sheds the water much better and really prohibits that effect. And also the bridge deck expansion joints. Now, things that when you're driving over a bridge, the clunk clunk, that sound, those are at the ends of the deck, and they're built in there to allow the bridge to expand and contract with the weather. But we found that we can eliminate many of those joints as long as we do a little analysis on the structure. What this is showing is there had been an expansion joint right there in the middle of this picture. And what we did is we chipped back on both sides of that joint, and we're going to cast a concrete over the top of it. And that's what it looks like. So we had a joint at one time, that joint is gone, and then this bridge deck would then get an overlay so we have a smooth driving surface. Again, the idea is sealing up that roof, fixing the problem that allows the water and salt in. So quick examples, and I'll really just give a quick one here. This is I-64 over the Shiloh Valley, just east of Richmond, near Central Office. And this is an at-grade and an aerial view of the bridge deck prior to the repairs. And it was a problem because you can see all the patchwork kind of look, all that patching that we had done out there, and the deck was deteriorating. And we were thinking ourselves into a spiral on the thing. We kept saying, well, yes, it needs to be repaired, but you see, it's not really wide enough, is it? And gosh, it's part of this big interchange, and maybe for the interchange, we kept waiting, and the bridge got structure deficient, and we kept saying, well, we can't do anything about it, but really we could. There was a lot we could do about it. So what we did is we took a fresh look at this target repair idea. We said, well, we did a fast-track hydrodemolition on the bridge, and we came in and we gave a new surface, and that's a picture of the deck prior to placement of the overlay. What it looks like now. We coat parapets to preserve them, to keep the water from coming in. We were not to eliminate the joints yet. That'll be done on a subsequent project. But from Ivor's perspective, what you have is a new bridge. And from the perspective of deterioration, we've put this bridge on an infinite life cycle. Will it need to be addressed again in 30 years? Yes, it will. But not to the extent the cost that a replacement would cost. It's a little narrow. We accept that. We know that. But you can also widen the bridge at some later date. So here's a summary of how the two ideas compare. So with our repair preservation plan, which is basically doing everything we know to do to fix and preserve that bridge, we're talking $22 million. For replacement of those bridges, it's actually twin bridges, would have been $125 million or better. So this gives you a sense of the risks that we can be addressing. And this is the way we need to think as we go forward, and we try to address all the structurally deficient bridges in Virginia. if we have this philosophy, we can hit a lot more bridges and do the right thing. Now, again, sometimes bridges have reached that deterioration point where they have to be replaced. Many will. But we just think about this and try to apply it where possible. Okay, and then I'll open it up for discussion with questions if anybody has.
Give them the chat.
There aren't any questions in the chat. If you have questions, please use the chat feature and go ahead and send to us.
I know this is a lot of information, a lot of data. So we know there'll be lots of questions. One of the things that is on your webpage is a list of your district bridge engineer as your contacts, because if you have questions or specifics about bridge and locality, we would encourage you to reach out to those individuals to work with you. That in addition to the data that we provide, and I'll hold off, I think most of you know we work, our room is near City of Richmond, Main Street, and whenever there's a siren coming, but our bridge office is going to post some additional data, basically giving you more of the detailed data that makes up the scores that you see on the district bridge listings, and also have indicated they'll provide kind of a guide so that you can, if you're just raw data, trying to make sure that you can what that data means, because it is a lot of data to try to see if you're not familiar with looking at these reports. Did you get a question?
Yeah, we're starting to get some questions in the chat box. Question was, will the presentation be posted on our website? Yes, we're actually recording this, and we're gonna post it on our website, and here in a couple minutes I'll show you all where all this information will be posted for now. There's also a question about the deadline for submission of the applications or the request for funding forms. We're going to go through that in a minute. We're going to actually go through the form that you all are going to be submitting, and I'll go through the schedule of what we intend to get out to the program. Questions?
Sam? There's no other questions for Adam, and at the end we'll come back for general questions. Also, just going to walk through the form that you will be using to submit to us for all of your structurally deficient bridges. They're being referred to as the bridge information update form. This is a form that we'll be asking you to submit regardless of whether you're asking for stated good repair funding. This form is posted on our webpage, but I did just look and see that some functionality that's into the form is not available on the online form. It's probably a conversion PDF, and we'll get that corrected. But I'll go through the form and just show you some of what's been built into it. But essentially, for any locality, once you indicate your locality, it will pre-populate with the structurally deficient bridges in your locality. So I just picked one, Chesapeake, and once you select locality, it will give you a drop-down menu showing the structures that are currently shown as structurally deficient based on the latest version that we have on file and that is in our system. And I say because that is important. I know that, we may have an inspection report that was submitted 2 years ago. Work may have been done that has corrected that structural deficient out of that bridge, but if we don't have an updated inspection report, this bridge is going to still be shown as structurally deficient. Once you select bridge that you want to submit this form for, it's going to populate the route number, facility name, and it's asking a question that may seem redundant. We're asking, is the bridge currently structurally deficient? Again, this gets back to, has it already been addressed? Should this project should the bridge be removed from structurally deficient? Do we need to get a new updated inspection form? Basically, providing a description of the work that is proposed to address the deficiency. As part of the management system, there's a recommendation for what that corrective action would be, but recognizing that those of you who are working directly with that bridge may see something different, may have an alternative you want to suggest, so this is really the opportunity to offer what the recommendation is for addressing that particular bridge. This form really gives you a good sense of what we're asking for. We'll probably make a couple revisions. One thing, probably need to offer the opportunity to attach a Word document. You may want more information than you can get into this box, and so we'll make that opportunity available. The question, does this work remove this bridge from the structurally efficient status? That is a condition if you want to apply for state aid repair funding. We're asking for the date of the latest bridge safety inspection report. Again, this is just to make sure that the date we have on file is current, and if you have one that has a date later than what we have in our system, we'll be following up to make sure we get that latest inspection report. And basically, depending on how you answer a question, you'll get two separate boxes of the form. The first is, will you be requesting state of good repair funding? If you do not check this box, it's assumed you will not be requesting state of good repair funding. And to answer the question of why you would not be requesting state of good repair funding, it may be that this bridge is already funded for improvement through other means. It's already been part of a project plan for years. It may be that you've made a decision that this bridge is not going to remain in service. We certainly to a job where you have a bridge that, based on the traffic use and the cost of improvement, there's a decision to be made whether or not you're going to pursue any type of funding for replacing that bridge or to repair it. If you are not going to request state of repair, really just give information about what is the background. We are asking that you give us a checkbox that the NBIS inspection report for this bridge is up to date, and that you have provided an electronic copy to our district bridge engineer office. That's really how we get our bridge system updated, is by the information you provide to your district bridge engineer. Then if you indicate that you will be requesting state of good repair funds, you'll get a different drop down, and basically at that point you'll be asked to give you information about the particular improvement that you're requesting, what cost is for PE right-of-way construction, your anticipated start date, your anticipated end date, whether the project will be fully funded, and then a breakdown of where your funding is coming from. Give the proposed the actual state of good repair funds that are being requested. Similar to Smart Scale, the amount of money that you will be requesting is really what's used in your cost effectiveness in terms of determining your ratio for that work. There is some effort, again, just that, there's an understanding that, this really isn't intended to replace other means of addressing bridges. It was intended to supplement so that we can get as many bridges as possible off the structurally deficient list. As Adam said, this isn't a replacement for the maintenance program. It really is specifically geared toward funding to perform cost-effective solutions to get bridges off the structurally deficient status. And we'll take any questions you have on the form.
All right, I see some questions about providing localities with the VDOT district bridge engineer list, contact list. I'll show that in a minute. We have that on our external site where we have a breakdown so you know who to contact. We'll also reach out to our district bridge engineers and provide them names and the localities too, so they can expect your call or email. we're gonna put not only the recording, but we'll also put the presentations that were given today. We'll put them on our website as well, and it'll show here in a minute where that information will be housed. And we have a question here, Adam.
How does this affect receiving SGR funds?
So the question is if a bridge needs added capacity, how will this affect receiving SGR funds? So this is sidewalk pedestrian capacity.
We are, just in a general sense, there's a lot of, going to be a lot of questions about what will be paid for and what won't be. And we're developing an NIM, or a memorandum that we push at VDOT that will explain the limits of what we pay for and what we can't. But in the general sense, what this is a replacement in kind or repair in kind. It's not a capacity improvement type project. If you need to expand the bridge, make it bigger, or add lanes, that sort of thing, that is not going to be funded through this fund. It doesn't mean you can't expand it, but the funds need to come for that portion, need to come from another source, whether smart scale or something else. So really, and we'll be kind of publishing all that data for everybody. But now there's some, say, tie-ins. If you take a replacement project, sometimes you have to tie in the bridge to the existing roadway, and there's some work associated with that. So it's a project reimbursement type program. And that means you need to do the project, but that doesn't include increasing the capacity of the bridge. I hope that answers the question.
Just a question, when we're gonna publicize the memo, post it. I know Bridge is working on that now, along with some FAQs, and we're working on that now. I'm not sure how quickly we'll be able to get it done, but the sooner the better.
Before Labor Day.
And I know it won't impact everyone, but for those of you that will be at the local programs workshop, there will be a presentation with State Repair Bridges, but we also plan to have a table available, I think on day 2, where we're having individuals available to talk to you one-on-one about state repair. That will be Todd from Central Office Structure and Bridge, but that'll be an opportunity if you're there to talk more deeply about questions you may have about your bridge and your application or your form submittal.
All right, I don't see any questions. I'll go ahead and move into the schedule. And if you have questions as we go through, please feel free to put that in the chat box. We went through a lot of information. Again, we want to show what schedule we have for the funds. And let me make sure you all can see it. Y'all should be able to see it. So we've been working on this since July, since the CTB approved the actual prioritization process for both pavements and bridges. The box was put together based on your inspection reports, like Adam discussed. The list and sent the priority list by district to the VDOT district bridge engineers for them to take a look at and to provide comments and recommendations back to the central office, bridge office. We started working on this funding request form that Julie just went over, and we had we had a local stakeholders group meeting. We had one on a webinar, and that local stakeholders group is about 14 different localities from the Commonwealth, along with VACO, VML, the First Cities Coalition, and the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. So we want to share this information as draft form, just to kind of get some feedback from that group to see if we were given enough information and the format of the information, etc. So we received some feedback initially from them, and then we had an in-person meeting back on August 1st. We've been getting some comments from that group and kind of find our spreadsheets and some of our data accordingly based on some of the that we received back. So we reached to our district folks, the VDOT district staff back on the 11th. We had a video conference just to kind of get them up to speed on where we are with the program and then schedule moving forward so that if you all have questions, you can reach out to those folks too. So we had that back on the 11th. I've been revising the prioritization list that we sent out this morning. So it's the presses, and it is out on our website, and I'll show that here in a second. Of course, the outreach to localities, the webinar, which is today. Julie mentioned our local programs workshop. We're going to have 2 presentations given by Adam and a couple different breakout sessions, and like Julie mentioned, we're going to have an information table for you guys to ask some more detailed questions to some of the bridge folks. A lot of time, if you look at the schedule between now and the end of September and October for training, for outreach, for you to ask questions and work with us. See, even through October, we want some feedback. We want to hear from you. We want you to reach out to your VDOT bridge engineers to ask questions and to go through information, review the information we have to make sure it's correct. You know, if you see things on the list that you're not sure about, you know, please reach out to those bridge engineers. The form that you went over is going to be due on November 1st, supporting information that you have, and the bridge is going to evaluate, you know, what you submit and the cost effectiveness of what you're submitting, and finalize the prioritization list, and we're going to basically prepare that to bring to the CTB, the Commonwealth Transportation Board, in December. We don't have a date yet for that meeting, but we'll be sure to keep you updated. So the CTB will receive this tentative draft list in December, and they'll approve the projects in January. And I know I went through the schedule quickly. We're going to post this PowerPoint on our website also for you to be able to see. If there's any questions.
December CTB meeting date, I just looked on their CTB webpage, it has been set. The workshop will be December 6th, the action meet will be December 7th, and so this will be a workshop item at the December 6th meeting. That will be here in the central office.
See a couple questions. Question is, will contracts for repairs or replacement need federal requirements, provisions included?
That question, this is Jennifer Olin again with Asset Management, and we did for 2017 and 2018, we exempt the projects that were coming through so that while the state funding for those projects 17 and 18 from 19 forward would be expected to start following the federal requirements. And say that is to also say that when we get your, for pavements, it's pretty simple because you're doing that somewhat on an annual basis. On the bridges, it's very different. The way that we're looking at doing that is that we're going to fully fund the project based on, you know, the schedule of the project. So if once you submit your request form, depending upon how much funding you need, we will then to see to the project that you send in this year will be required specifically to have they'll be exempt. So is any projects that start to be submitted in the out years will be required to have the federal requirements, will be required to follow the federal provisions. And something that we've been talking about or explaining to stakeholders is that if you can think of ways that we can work with on this in an innovative approach, maybe that's working together in contracts or maybe even compiling contracts together to your projects forward, let's look at that potential. So, any ideas, please share them with your district bridge engineer or the bridge engineers here in central office.
There's a question about, do we anticipate localities administering set of good repair projects and contracts? On paving, we have all of the paving projects that were approved under primary extension and the SGR program, all locally administered. The bridge, it would depend. I mean, I guess the localities can administer their own projects if they need assistance from VDOT. Of course, we're here to help.
But that's, on a case-by-case basis, us really, partnering with localities and figure what is the right approach to it. So we're not going to demand that, localities have to administer everything. It's, again, us, it's really an opportunity for us to partner together. So anyway, and I don't think that we could stress enough that you're working really with your district bridge engineer or your district contact to work through some of these items, and we're here to assist and to try to come up with innovative ways to solve issues that you're running into.
There's a question. Once CTB approves in January, when would funds become available for selected projects?
So it's actually, so just so that everybody realizes, because we received money in 2017, money for the district locality bridges are actually set aside in what we call a free account. And so you will actually start seeing funding once the CTB approves. The funding will then be applied to the project. And it will be 18 money, and then depending on your schedule, you may see some 19 and 20. Again, I just want to point out that, as I showed previously, percentages are locked in for 17 and 18. We will get those percentages in 19, and so the percentages that, or the funding that's coming in 19, 20, and then 21, 22 may change over the years, but again, we'll look at projects that are underway first, and then look at new projects after that, like we do any 6-year improvement program.
And then these projects, similar to the paving projects, will need project-specific agreements between that and the locality. So who's administering the project? So we'll begin with you all once the tentative list is brought to the CTB in December, so that we can be ready to go after the CTB approves in January. Question, what is the anticipated total cost for SGR funding for this cycle?
What is the total anticipated for SGR funding? Well, again, each district, the funding is split out between 9 construction districts. Each district has 4 pots of money. We have a state-of-the-art repair, VDOT, a VDOT pave, a locality bridge, and a locality pavement. If you look online, and I guess maybe we could add the link into the onto the website so they're all in one place. The 6-year improvement program has the information for state-of-the-art repair, and could actually go into Richmond District's local bridge balance entry project and see how much is slated for 17, 18, 19, and on.
What happens if a locality doesn't request all of its funding?
The funds are by, like I'm at the list of FY17 for locality bridges, it looks like it's roughly 17 million statewide and roughly 8 million in so, but that's district, so there's no funding dedicated to a specific locality.
Correct.
I think we do have the unique situation in a couple of districts where there may only be one locality that has structurally deficient bridges in the district because they don't have very many localities that maintain their own system. But, you know, it's set aside for that locality based on, for that district based on the percent of their overall needs. And so we anticipate that we're gonna have an entire district that there isn't a request to, you know, using to address structurally deficient structures. But certainly if there comes a point in time when that funding is sitting unused, that will be a discussion that we'll have with their floor about what options to do.
Another, about, whether bridges fall within the district's list that they may not receive SGR funding until another locality within their district bridges are complete.
It's just a simple system where you pick you pick bridges on the list until funding runs out. And that's really, it's just that basic. So, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if there's enough funding for 3 projects, those first 3 lists get the money, and then the next ones, next time there's another funding round, they get scored again. That's really, and it's based on the final score, not the initial score. It's based on, recognize that they will be looking at their scope and estimate and submitting their funding request and be you. So there could be some substantial changes between the initial score and the final score. In fact, we anticipate that there will be. So just something to keep that in mind. But and hopefully that's the question that they're asking in the first. And the next, do I understand correctly that the district bridge office may be involved with developing bridge contracts for localities? I don't think that we anticipate that. I think that it's too much for the district bridge offices to take on. What we're really saying more on that front is reach them primarily for technical assistance, because I mean, we have a lot of critical mass of technical knowledge, and reach out to them for that. For the contracts, each city will have its own regulatory environment, all standard contracts and things. So we really can't get into that. Now, I think what Jennifer was saying is, in the future, on a case-by-case basis, if you see a place where we can help you, then let's talk. We'll see what we can do, or we want to help. It's a new world, and if we help, we will. But again, we have our mission, you have yours, so there's always going to be a natural tendency to take care of one's own things. But we want to help you where we can. If that ends into contracting help on a by-case basis, let's talk through and see how we can help each other. Okay.
I'm not seeing questions. Is there any questions out there?
Well, for verbal questions, if anyone has a question they'd like to ask while we have everyone together. Okay, well, as Tom indicated, this webinar was recorded. We will have that placed on a webpage. Currently, what's the webpage?
Yes, I was. I have it on our external site for you to be able to actually see the information. Let me back to the everybody can see where to come. So if you come to the VDOT site, Business Center, and then scroll, and you'll have address, but local assistance, you'll see our main site. This is local main site. If you on this address, you'll be able to get that information, get directly. And we're going to put all the information under state hair. Locally, we have several things here. You'll see the primary extensions, high volume unpaved roads and state of good repair. We have the primary extension and state of good repair for payments. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see the information for legally owned bridges. And we already put out there what I sent out to you this morning, the PDFs of the district bridge, deficient, locally owned organization list are there. I'll have the form that Julie went over for you to see. No, we'll provide that once it's updated. We'll provide a link to where you can actually submit that form. I also have the VDOT district contact list, and then I'm gonna put the this webinar site and this location along with the actual PowerPoints that we went over today and any additional information I'll put here as well. Once we get it out there, we'll send an email to you letting you know that it's there.
Mentioned, but I know that advocated that as you're looking at your district list, if concerns or questions about that data, to please coordinate with your district bridge engineer if there's information that you believe needs to be updated. And that there's a news report or there's something that you reflected, but coordinate that with your district bridge engineer and we'll try to address it.
Jennifer's group is developing frequently asked questions, and then just so you, yeah, sorry. That's what I was wondering. So I guess that'll get posted at some point.
We're going to actually taking a look at that next week,
Okay.
sending out internally, and then we'll send it out as draft format to localities, and then that way we can receive comment on that. Let's go ahead and send it to the local stakeholders group, and then we can add to any of that information so that once we have a good final, we can go ahead and post it.
Okay, if you don't have any other questions, we're going to go ahead and close the webinar. We do appreciate your attendance at today's webinar. Again, we know there's a lot of information here, but you've got the contact for people to follow up as you have questions as you review the data. Thank you.